Hey guys, it's Celestia, and while I'm sorry I wasn't able to make a video last week, I'm really excited to tell you why. One of my 2021 goals was to take more online courses relating to art, because I don't intend to go to art school, but I do still want to regularly and significantly improve my skills. The first one on my list was Digital Illustration with Manga Influence by Akimaro, which you can find and buy yourself if you'd like over on Domestika. It's linked in the description. The course is in Spanish, but there are English subtitles for everything, so English speakers don't need to worry about missing out on anything there. And no, to be clear, I'm not sponsored by Domestika or anything, and I'll be taking courses all around the internet within the coming months, including on Skillshare and other individually produced tutorials. Anyway, the reason I chose this course was that not only does the art style match up well with my own, but Akimaro is incredibly talented at showing a visual narrative without actually using words in their pieces, which is something that I've always envied and wanted to improve at. And throughout the course, I've been working on my final project for it, which is exactly that. Students are encouraged to use the themes of childhood and happiness to tell a visual narrative wordlessly throughout 3 or 4 pieces, similar to a comic, but letting the art tell the story instead. Given that my childhood is a deep dark place that we don't visit, I chose to focus instead on my journey with art since childhood, including my inspirations and my first steps towards pursuing it as a career. So for the next few videos, I'll be working on those 4 pieces for my final project. In this video, you can see me working on the sketches for all of them. The next video will be the line art for each piece, and the final video will have the flat color and shading of each piece. Ko-fi supporters will also get to see the start-to-finish process of each piece posted over there, but that's really more a matter of convenience because it's the same content, just organized differently. Anyway, all that aside, let's get into the actual topic of today's video, which is what you guys voted for on Twitter, and that is Deviantart dead? That's a big question in and of itself that I imagine is already prompting a strong response from 2 types of people. The ones who hate Deviantart, screaming their agreement that the platform is thoroughly deceased and irrelevant, and the ones who still love it getting ready to fight me in the pit for even suggesting such a thing. But for the benefit of the people who don't actually know much about Deviantart, those 2 types of people are both gonna have to wait a minute for the juicy hot takes they're waiting for while I explain what it actually is. Deviantart is a social media platform dedicated to almost all forms of art, on which users can post their art, write updates, set up profiles similar to portfolios, browse and comment on other posts and pieces, etc. It was founded in the year 2000 and was pretty popular even in mainstream circles throughout the early 2000s. If you ask people when that popularity started to wane and the platform fell out of favor with its audience, the answer tends to be anywhere between 2014 and 2017. And there are a plethora of reasons for that, all of which I'll cover in this video, but we're not there yet because we're still not done with the timeline. Deviantart was bought by Wix in 2017, which was widely regarded as a very bad thing by its user base. And Wix completely revamped the site with the release of Deviantart Eclipse in 2019. While this change was also widely regarded as a bad move, there are some very aggressively differing opinions on that, and I would really recommend SolarSand's video on it if you're interested in hearing the details about the site change itself, because I won't be going in depth about that here. While DeviantArt's popularity has been declining for almost a decade now, it's still a prominent name in the art community, and for good reason. There is no other social media platform only for art and artists that can compete with it, the most notable exception being ArtStation. ArtStation is an excellent alternative as an art-based social media platform, but it's so focused on professional, industry-level artwork and job listings that it isn't necessarily well-suited to hobbyist artists who aren't looking to build a professional portfolio to promote. And with that in mind, given that DeviantArt is friendly to any demographic of artist with any skill level, I would be inclined to say that DeviantArt is therefore the better platform for the majority of people, simply because its audience is wider. ArtStation is definitely incomparably better for anything professional in the art industry, but that is objectively a smaller pool within the wider range of artists looking to use these platforms. Even so, despite being the most successful art-based social media platform, DeviantArt has seen a steady decline in traffic and searches since 2016, and I, like many others, have found myself wondering just what happened to this platform that was once so beloved. I found DeviantArt in 2012, and was very active across multiple accounts for about 6 years, so I know that at least for me personally, it's a platform that was very dear to me for a very long time, as it was really my first step into the art world. But as things have declined over the years, the time and energy that I invested in it began to dwindle. And while I do still have an account, I don't post on it anymore. I think my last art posted on there was in January of 2021. Unlike some people with more aggressive opinions, I don't hate DeviantArt, and I'm not actively leaving the platform in revolt against it. But the engagement that I received there has quite simply dwindled to nothing. Something I've heard from many other artists as well, and it just really isn't worth the effort for me or many others anymore. So let's talk about why. What happened to DeviantArt? It isn't only the traffic that's been declining. User sentiment has become gradually more and more negative over the years too, leaving its current review score at 1.3 out of 5 stars. Looking a little more into those stats, we'll find two particularly interesting tidbits that both lead me to the main point of contention with the platform. According to SimilarWeb, the top two audience interest categories amongst DeviantArt's current user base are number 1, gaming, and number 2, adult content. And according to Alexa's site info, the top topic on the site by social engagement is not in fact artwork, but ponies, and by a pretty significant margin. Now, before My Little Pony fans everywhere start joining the people ready to fight me in the pit, no, I'm not building up to say that the bronies took over DeviantArt, so put your fists down. Because the point that I'm going to make is not actually about the ponies, but about the fact that the majority of the pony content getting so much engagement there is also adult content. So why is this significant? Well, DeviantArt's definition of what is and isn't appropriate is a little different than most sites, and that's most likely in large part because they're trying to avoid artistic censorship. Unlike Tumblr, you can draw a tasteful nude and put it on DeviantArt without the site staff knocking on your door with a baseball bat within 2 minutes, and that's awesome. But the problem with their particularly lax standards on what is and isn't explicit or not safe for work, you'll find that a great deal of the art found on the platform is suggestive at best. Over time, DeviantArt has become more and more saturated in fetish and kink art, and because all of that is both allowed and encouraged, it's not only present there, it's unavoidable there. Coming back to the stats mentioned, let's talk about the ponies. If you search pony on DeviantArt, you don't even have to scroll before you're inundated with sexy Twilight sparkles and cartoon ponies in suggestive sexual positions, not to mention a great deal of fetish-related furry art. And I just tried it without logging into the account that has my age registered on it, and all of this content was front and center, not behind a wall of this might be suggestive or sexual, please log in and confirm your age to see it. And I had to scroll for 5 pages before I actually found a photo of a horse. To be fair here, I'm not even saying this content is bad. I'm glad that there's such a safe place for these communities to post and enjoy this kind of stuff, and I'm by no means saying that this stuff shouldn't exist. What I am saying is that the ratio of regular old art to fetish and kink art has gradually gone from maybe 80-20 to a 50-50 split at best. And this very sexual and fetish-specific art is not in its own tag or category for people looking for that. It'll come up if you search even the most innocent of searches. I actually felt a sinking feeling of dread when I typed pony into that search bar because I knew what was waiting for me in the results. And that has, in time, come to define DeviantArt's reputation amongst users and artists most significantly. No matter how you feel about the not safe for work content on the platform, most people would agree that that content is what it's most known for these days. This isn't the only reason for DeviantArt's decline, however. Another big point artists have been complaining about for a long time is the prevalence of art theft on the platform, and how little its staff have been doing to prevent or even take any action at all against it. I've had my art stolen and reposted on DeviantArt, and I know many, many others who also have. And while this is a problem that happens anywhere on the internet, most notably Pinterest, it's difficult to find a platform that has handled it anywhere near as poorly as DeviantArt has. Say what you will about Pinterest, but it's incredibly easy to report your art being stolen and reposted there, and they take those reports seriously and act fast. DeviantArt, however, is full of dissatisfied and furious users posting about how when they reported these thefts to the staff, they were met with little or no action in response, if not a straight-up dismissal. For a platform focused so entirely on art, you would think that they would be more vigilant in maintaining a safe environment in which artists can share their work, but it seems that their failings to do so over the years have not improved with time. The next major issue users have had with DeviantArt is, as I mentioned briefly before, Eclipse. Eclipse was Wix's attempt to rebrand DeviantArt and modernize what was, in all fairness, a pretty outdated and aged website. It's a relatively unpopular opinion, but I actually think that was pretty reasonable. DeviantArt did need some updating. But amongst many other problems, Eclipse took that way too far. Modernizing the platform ended up turning it into a completely revamped, monochromatic website that can't even be said to resemble its former self. Yes, the site had been outdated before, but Wix pretty much took everything that made DeviantArt DeviantArt and removed it. The culture and uniqueness of the platform was exactly what made it so well loved, and in trying to spice that up and appeal to a wider audience, Wix removed the very aspects that were keeping their smaller but more dedicated existing audience interested. Gone are the days of fella and llama badges. Now DeviantArt is just, well, it's just like every other platform. And given that that's just the visual aspect, that's just the tip of the iceberg of problems that Eclipse presented. So again, I recommend you check out SolarSen's video on it for more info on the depths of the issues that arose from this change. Ultimately, Eclipse drove a lot of DeviantArt's original user base away, but its more streamlined and modern aesthetic did bring some new users in as well. And while I do think Eclipse was a factor in the platform's decline, I don't think it was a make-or-break thing that completely destroyed it. Many, and I do mean many, will disagree with me on that though, and that's fair. Finally, I think another contributing factor to why so many artists left DeviantArt for other platforms has to do with the appeal of general social media. For me, when I started on DeviantArt, it was the only place I could post my art. I didn't have Twitter or Instagram, and my Facebook was really just my friends from school and some family. And DeviantArt was the only community I knew where art was truly appreciated and welcomed. And I know that that was the case for a lot of people like me at that time too. The appeal of DeviantArt was largely that it was the only thing like it. But other social media platforms grew. Instagram became more than just the place that popular girls in your class posted their selfies. Twitter became more than just for celebrities and public figures. And strong art communities grew within these platforms, as well as many others. Yes, DeviantArt did remain the only art-based social media platform for quite some time, but a lot of artists found, in time, that they could find similar communities on other platforms too, while also appealing to a wider audience than just fellow artists. Ultimately, DeviantArt's user base has always been, for the most part, artists. And while that's a large demographic in and of itself, platforms like Instagram and Twitter allow you to post your art with art communities as your main target audience, and still take advantage of their huge, widespread audiences that aren't limited to artists that might still enjoy your content. Ultimately, I feel like DeviantArt's users grew up, but DeviantArt didn't, at least not in time. When we were moving to posting art from our smartphones, DeviantArt's mobile app was barely functional at best. When young artists began developing into professionals seeking a platform to properly monetize and promote their content on, DeviantArt was still largely focused on catering to hobbyists and beginners, or at least was too focused on pleasing every type of artist that they ended up pleasing none of them. And it doesn't help that any feedback they received about any of this was largely ignored, causing the rift between staff and users to grow bigger and bigger. DeviantArt's audience largely just grew out of it when it failed to grow with them and accept the feedback that it was being given. And while Wix attempted to remedy that with its rebrand, all they ended up doing was dressing up the same platform and problems in a new monochromatic outfit. So where does that leave DeviantArt? Is it dead? Ultimately, no. It's still a huge platform with a huge audience, but it is dying, and that much is made clear both by user feedback and statistics. According to a study in 2020, DeviantArt ranked in the bottom 4 out of the 13 social media platforms that people use the most, receiving only 1% of votes. People are moving past it. Those of its users that grew into professional artists know not to use it for anything career-related, with some exceptions, because the reputation that it's developed, combined with the constant flood of fetish and kink art, has left it without any viability as a professional platform despite the marketplace, job listings, currency, and portfolio-like aesthetic. Those of its users that loved it for its uniqueness were faced with the loss of all of those unique qualities when Eclipse was released. Others were alienated by the prevalence of sexual content, others had their art stolen without any intervention from staff, and others simply grew out of it as better alternatives prevailed without any success on DeviantArt's behalf to compete with them. As I mentioned, there is still a huge dedicated audience on DeviantArt, but it doesn't have the mainstream appeal that it once did, and its user base now consists largely of niche groups, nostalgic older users who don't want to switch platforms, and people who are there for the kink art or the furry art, or often both. Obviously, there's nothing wrong with these demographics themselves. The problem lies in that where there used to be a wide range of users interested in a wide range of things, the scope of that range has become narrower and narrower with every passing year, and with so little else to balance out that content, it's become all the platform is known for. In all honesty, I do think DeviantArt is still a good platform, and I know there are a lot of people out there who have still found great success with it even recently, but its relevance has been objectively declining, and while that's incredibly sad to see, especially as someone who used it and loved it for so long, a great deal of DeviantArt's own actions had a hand in that. Maybe it can find a way to recover from its bad reputation, and I truly hope that it does, but it's not something that I really consider likely. Anyway, that's that. I know a lot of you will disagree with at least some of the points made here, and that's totally fair. Most of it is just speculation in my opinion anyway, statistics aside, and honestly, if you're a die-hard DeviantArt fan and you love the platform, you're totally and completely valid, and I'm really happy that you still enjoy it so much. Maybe I'm just jaded in my old age. Regardless, I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. Before I end it off, I have 2 pieces of fan art to show you guys, which is wildly exciting to me. The first piece was done by RoxyTunes on Twitter, and the second piece was done by Sydney on Instagram. And they're both so beautiful, and I'm overwhelmed by the fact that you guys made such incredible art of Celestia. Thank you both so much. You can check out both of them via the links in the description, and you should, because they're super talented and you'd be missing out if you didn't. Anyway, thanks for watching, and don't forget to vote on this week's Twitter poll linked in the description to have a say in what I discuss next. Stay safe, and I'll see you in my next video.